bam.
Yeah, there you
digital
go.
plate, digital license plate.
I changed my message to, if it don't fit, you must quit. I just thought that was funny.
We created a market. We are changing something that's been around for over 100 years.
Yeah.
We normally associate technology with AI and eye-raising, time-saving breakthroughs that have changed the way we live, think, and act. No one thought about it being used on the back of a car until an entrepreneur, Neville Boston, used technology to devise a digital car license plate that, as he likes to say, puts the DMV in your hand. A private sector innovation changing public sector efficiency. And the best news of all, we'll never have to go to the DMV again. From Ballard Studios in West Hollywood, California, another edition of 13th and Park.
We give you information, not a panic attack.
I mean, look what's going on. I mean, my God.
This was it. The kids were gonna die.
That time is gone forever.
This is the biggest story in America.
We weren't prepared for this.
Don't you want to speak truth to power?
Toughest thing I ever had to do.
Welcome to another episode of 13th and Park. We got the great Neville Boston. Neville, welcome to LA, man.
Man, I am so excited to be here and just hearing about this show and what you're doing, man. I'm following you to the ends of the earth. So wherever you're at, I'm coming.
Okay. I guess you are literally following me because I have your product on all of my cars. So I have your digital plate. We'll get into it a little bit with Reviver and the crazy cool technology that you're disrupting what we all think of as the regular license plate. So you not born and raised in California.
No. Listen, I'm first generation here from Guyana. So my parents were immigrants to this country.
Yeah.
My grandfather had a country store and a farm.
Wow.
And my dad's siblings, every single one of them had a business of their own.
Yeah.
So the entrepreneurial blood flows through my veins.
Wow.
So that's what that is about. So
Yeah.
I've always looked at life differently. I had a paper route when I was a kid. I cleaned mail trucks. I always hustled to get my own money.
Yeah.
So it was always about how can I operate in this world in a different way.
Yeah. How did you or your family get to California?
Okay, so my dad was a medical technologist.
Mm-hmm.
My uncle had a lab, which is the reason why they moved out, is so that they could, work together in the lab.
Where were they before they came to California?
They were in Massachusetts.
Oh,
I was
okay.
born in New York.
Okay.
I was there for a year, and then we moved to Massachusetts. Massachusetts for 10 years, and then California the rest of the time.
Where in Massachusetts were you?
Worcester, baby.
Wow, Worcester.
Yeah, Worcester.
See, that's, to people who are from there, they're going to be like, oh my God, that's a horrible accent. But,
Worcester, Mass, man. I mean, sneakers and pop, I used to be when I was a kid, coming here to the States, coming from Massachusetts to California with an accent wasn't the best. And, it was always the Lakers versus the Celtics back then.
Of course. Were you Lakers or Celtics? I have to ask.
Initially, I was Celtics.
Celtics,
because I was from the area.
Right.
And my last name is Boston. There you go.
Right.
So craziness, last name is Boston. Who else ever go with Boston? Yeah.
It's probably easier for you when you came here to say you're from Boston than Worcester because nobody would know
Nobody
what
has
that
a
is
clue.
or where it is.
Second largest city, nobody cares.
Yeah. So your family comes out from Worcester, Mass to California.
Yeah. And here's a funny story. So you're coming out, and where do you land? You land in LAX.
Right.
Because that's the main airport.
Yeah.
Big airport.
Yeah.
And then you get in a car and you start driving. It's like, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh my God, beaches and, beautiful people and everything else. And you keep driving. It's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. You go over this thing called the Grapevine, and then you descend.
Which has no grapes.
No grapes.
It's just mountains.
And then you descend into hell. And then you end up in Bakersfield.
Descend into hell.
No, listen. I'm not going to hate on Bakersfield. I spent many years there. We both share the Bakersfield connection, so I completely get it. But Bakersfield to LA, especially somebody coming from the East Coast, was kind of a stark reality.
Where'd you go to college?
Cal, Berkeley.
Okay, so that's
a crazy story. So I had a really dear friend of mine that passed away a couple years ago, and I actually came to visit him up in Oakland. And he had gone to Fresno State. I was trying to figure things out.
Right.
I'm walking around. He took me to Berkeley. As soon as I stepped on campus, it's like, I need to go to school here.
Right. Okay, so you're at Berkeley, and you already said that you kind of had the entrepreneurial bug. Did you think at any point no, I think I'm just going to go do some traditional job? Or were you always thinking, I got to do my own thing?
Listen, I was always had a side hustle of some kind.
Right,
so I was actually working with somebody on like a real estate project, crazy. It was always something that was like, on the side, like I was working. But when I was at Cal, I majored in poli-sci, minored in business. The thought was that I'd become an attorney.
Okay.
And I would practice contract law, something like that, where I would be, dealing in business and things of that nature. So that was my understanding. And I had a good friend, mutual friend, Johnny Carter.
Right.
Johnny Carter.
Yeah. Cartier.
So, Cartier.
He's going to be
Johnny
upset.
Cartier. Got to say it right. So Johnny was actually dating a good friend of mine who was going to law school. They were both going to law school at the same time. And I saw what they were going through, and I was thinking to myself, is that really what I want to do? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I was still leaning in that direction.
Yeah.
We also worked on Willie Brown's campaign. So, we were driving around, just step and fetch it, type things. So I got out there, met Barbara Lee when she was married to Pastor. So all of that stuff was really informative because I had a political itch. I was always interested in politics. Like that was my life. I spent at least 2 or 3 hours every day reading and listening just so that I had that acumen. So politics is like near and dear to my heart. So I thought I was going to go into, business, but I would always have some kind of political bent. So that was always in the background.
There are very few tech entrepreneurs that I talk to that know more about politics. I follow this stuff. I do it for a living. But I have these conversations with you, and it's like you're not talking about it at a surface level. It's like deep, thoughtful analysis. Like that would be a whole nother conversation we could have about some of the things.
Oh my goodness, I would love to do that. It just
surprises me that you have the time to basically run a tech startup and also pay that much attention to what's going on in the world of politics.
You kind of have to, because what I learned about politics, it runs everything. And whether you want to pay attention to it or not, it's still there. And if you don't understand how it materially affects your business and what you're trying to do, you will be at a complete loss. And for me, I never wanted to be ignorant of facts that I think I would need in order to do it. And then in addition to it, I run legislation in the states that I go into anyway. So I'm
that nexus happened to come that you ended up working in an area
full
that's heavily,
circle where I do
regulated.
Business and I'm involved in politics. And the funny thing is I spent a year literally immersing myself in the process in the state of California to figure out how things ran before I even we even hired a lobbyist. I needed to know for myself what happens in committees, kind of the process, who runs it, even though they don't have the titles. Kind of the neck that turns the head, and understanding the nuances of things that you need to do and the processes so that you know what to talk about and the questions to ask so you don't get put in an unfavorable position.
I think you started another company in the hospitality industry.
I had
before,
a marketing company.
Or
so
marketing.
So I had a really, really dear friend. She had been working for a marketing company, one of the big marketing companies, I think one of the largest African-American run marketing companies, Carol H. Williams out of Oakland. And I, at that time, was working for a small law firm. And I'd actually brought in some business, so I made some additional money outside of what they normally paid me. So I had some money set aside. And she came to me, she was like, listen, I've got this idea for a business, but where I'm at right now, I don't think they're interested in doing it. So I'm thinking about breaking out and doing it myself. So I had a godfather in San Francisco, an older Jewish guy that I'd known forever. My dad had introduced me to, a guy named David Kaplan. Any crazy kooky idea that came to mind, I would run by him. And he'd be like, oh, that's interesting, But he never said he would invest. So I actually took this business model to him. And I was like, David, I need your analysis on this. So he did it and did an analysis, brought one of his business partners to lunch with me and my business partner at the time. And he was like, listen, not only is this a great business, I'm willing to put money in it. But he was like, you don't need my money. I think this model, you'll be able to raise everything that you need. He was right. And our first client was Diageo and Crown Royale, and we developed some programs for them, and that's where everything began. We did the Oscars, we did the Grammys, we did the ESPYs, we did the VMAs, BET Music Awards, all of this stuff that we were involved in. We developed campaigns for brands like Pepsi, like Diageo, like Moet Hennessy. Like, we were doing a bunch of different things, and the company was growing.
Yeah.
And we were on a trajectory where I thought that's where I was going to retire from. Like, we would end up selling the company and going into something else. 2008 came around, and there was this dark reality of all the growth that we thought we were going to have. They were like, no, it's not happening. We're flatlining.
Yep.
So at that point, I came back to California. I was talking to a good friend of mine. I was like, listen, I need to get in a business that is different. One, that regardless of what's going on with the economy, that there's still a need for a product.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy to think about, but one of the things that actually came together from our conversation is like, state of California owns and controls a lot of underutilized assets.
Yeah.
What could we do with some of these unutilized assets that would actually create a business? A friend of mine had had a horrible run-in with the DMV. We realized that every year you got to update your registration.
Right.
So what if we had a digital plate on a vehicle and you could update it remotely? Would that work? Is that something of interest?
Yeah.
All right, so craziest thing, 2008, December of 2008, we get a meeting set up with Dennis Clear, the Deputy Director of Legislation for the California DMV. And what I thought was going to be a 5-minute meeting ended up being an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Because Dennis was like, we want to go more online. We want to, cut our lines down, get more people out of the office, allow them to have the access to be able to update out of our offices.
Right.
So having a digital plate and being able to do that would actually help that. To the point where Dennis went to legislators' offices with us when we were having conversations.
Wow. I met you when you were on your own trying to do it. But having DMV as a partner in meetings with you, California, that's pretty
crazy.
That's
crazy.
Yeah.
And did it on his own.
Right.
And I mean, and that was where I realized there was something here. We actually met with Avery Brown for the CHP and met with their team. And basically what they said is, thank you for having the conversation with us. When you guys build a prototype, take it to our test track in Sacramento and we can run it through its paces. So we've been working with CHP on that since 2009.
Wow.
This is year 15 for this company.
Yeah.
But this is the crazy thing. I look at us in our trajectory like I look at SpaceX. SpaceX changed intergalactic travel based on a premonition that they could do it better than governments could. Now they control 65% of that business.
And the reusable rocket was a huge...
Reusable rocket was the game changer.
That was the game changer.
That was
and
the
other
game
companies
changer.
had done it. I mean, I had spent some time at Boeing, and there had been discussions and actual work on reusable rockets for years, but nobody could do it in a way that was sustainable.
And this is the thing that was so amazing about what Elon Musk did, is that nobody told him that he was going to get any government contracts.
Right.
Nation states were traveling to space, not companies.
Right.
So the fact that he was able to get into the space is mind-blowing, and now he has 65% of the market.
Right. Talk
Globally.
About disruption.
Disruption.
Yeah. So you thought about the plates that you get when you buy your car. Well, you don't get it. You get nothing. You get a piece of paper in the old days. Then your plate comes in the mail if it doesn't get lost. And then you get your tags.
You got to score the tags
everywhere. Every year, you got to make sure you put them on. You got to cut them so they don't get stolen. And if they get stolen, there's all this stuff. So you're thinking to yourself,
streamline.
How do we just disrupt all of that?
We're digitizing the process.
Correct.
It's something that's needed to be done.
Right.
It's been needing to be updated. Nobody knew how to do it.
Right.
And that's the same thing that Elon Musk did with the rocket. Nobody knew how to make a reusable rocket that would actually work and not blow up.
Right.
So that's the work you do. And the reason why I'm using that example is because of the time. When people hear about this is a startup, but it's been around for 15 years, we created a market. We are changing something that's been around for over 100 years.
Yeah, right.
So
That's
it's
the
a
point.
big deal. It's a big deal. And it takes titanic shifts in order for something like this to be able to work.
I mean, it's the adoption of it, but there's customer adoption.
Right.
That's one thing. But
legislative.
There's also the political and governmental, because vehicle licensing 100%. Is a state-run operation. And all of the other like commercial aspects and partners to that are sort of ancillary to the fact that this is a government function.
100%.
So now you're coming in like SpaceX did and taking a government function, not turning it into a commercial product, but making a product that makes that function work better.
Absolutely.
That's the idea.
It's the perfect public-private partnership.
Yeah.
It's understanding and having conversations about what people need.
Yeah.
And listening to them. I think one of the problems that happens is people don't listen to each other.
Yeah.
They're waiting to speak and not really listening to what's being said. My first conversation with the DMV, I sit down and I ask the question, how can I help you?
Yeah.
What are things that you guys need?
Right.
How can we streamline a lot of these processes?
Yeah.
And I sit back and don't talk. And then they tell me all the problems. And then I realize, okay, we can help streamline this, and this.
Right.
How do we connect?
Yeah.
Because that's the digital connection is what is the game changer for this.
Right.
Ours is about data aggregation and being in the information flow of data and be able to be a trusted source based on a relationship with the partners that we have that happen to be governmental entities.
Right. Okay, so tell us what this thing is. We've talked about it a little bit. You haven't actually really talked about what the plate is.
Hold on a second. I got a plate. Let me grab my plate so I can give it to you.
And
I have it in my backpack. You know, you never leave home without it.
There you go.
Bam.
Yeah, there you
digital
go.
plate, digital license plate. It says
Hold it up over. Yeah, there you go.
Your plate.
Yeah.
So when you think about a digital rendition of a license plate, first question is people ask why. And I go to the example of you never thought that there was an issue with your doorbell until you got a ring.
Right.
And then when you got the ring,
and all
you
the
realize
additional functionality that you got from
all the other
it.
functions that you could get from the product. So people were like, you're, a solution in search of a problem.
Yeah.
No.
Well, that's the cell phone too.
Yes.
You thought, I just need a phone to make phone calls. And then you realize that you get something that makes phone calls, that's made for phone calls, but actually you use it for all these other things. Like how many people actually really make phone calls using that? They're using that phone for a lot of other things.
It's probably 5% of it. And more than that, that's crazy. People never thought that they would get rid of their home phones.
Correct.
So the whole idea of you no longer having a plug-in phone and you're using your cell phone, completely foreign.
Yeah.
It's just like I go back in time. I used to leave home with 2 dimes to be able to make
to be able to make a phone call. You don't do that yet. What is a payphone?
What is a payphone?
And so now it's like, what is the world that people aren't really conceiving of right now that this opens up?
So when you think about the plate and you think about its features, the most rudimentary feature is to update your registration.
Right.
To make sure that this is always in compliance.
Yeah.
Because the idea, when I used to talk to VCs, you go to VCs because they're smarter than everybody else. Their biggest thing is like, I could just do this on my phone. I was like, yeah, but the only person that can see your phone is you.
Right.
The rest of the world actually needs to know that this has been updated and this is compliant.
Right.
So I think the difference is so what this allows you to do is that your compliance is now real time.
Right, it's instantaneous.
So it's instantaneous.
Yeah,
it's
there's
the
no
big
getting
deal.
stickers and none of that. It just, you pay your registration and literally 15 minutes later,
it's updated.
Your plate just blinks and the new year is already there.
It's already there.
Right.
And it's been verified through the DMV because we're connected and the whole process.
That's probably going to get faster and
everything will get faster. So so that's the first thing. So you have to be able to register it. But think about what other information could be useful on the plate. Amber alerts.
Right.
Silver alerts.
Right.
Any kind of inclement weather, all those kinds of things where we can help, emergency law enforcement with saving somebody's life. This is one thing that you can utilize this for. Vehicle is stolen. You can put stolen on the plate. Know where the vehicle is. Retrieve it. We've been able to do that. And when you're talking about, personalization, what about paying your tolls through your plate? What about having this being utilized as a parking meter? It's starting off with the premise that we want to work with you on the best types of solutions to be able to do this.
Right.
And the truth of the matter is, there isn't a better state to do any of this in than California.
What else would a consumer want?
Personalization.
Because you got to pay for it. I mean, so there's a premium for it.
But being able to have banner messages where it says dmv.ca.gov is one of the huge things.
Yeah.
People love that. I just came back from Cedric the Entertainer's house just a minute ago.
Yeah.
We put some plates on his cars, and we got a new customer because somebody was doing work at his house and was like, hold on a second. What is this? I need to get this for my Cybertruck. I've got a Cybertruck and I need to have this on there.
Right,
so your people, when they get it and understand that it's available, it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. But the thing about that he loved is the personalization aspect of it. He was able to update his plate, have a black background with white lettering on his new Maybach.
You can switch it back and forth. Right.
It was crazy.
I'm a Las Vegas Raider fan, so I had Raider Nation on at one point. And then big fan of Johnny Cochran. Before OJ passed, by the way, I changed my message to, if it don't fit, you must quit. I just thought that was funny thing to have. Yeah. But the fact that I can have that on my plate without changing the number letter configuration, that is a huge thing.
Personalization is huge.
My wife has cat lover on hers, right? Like that's a big thing that you're able to do.
Think about it like this. One of the most important purchases outside of your house is your car.
Yeah.
And when you have a car, it's very personal to you.
Yeah.
You've taken the time and money to buy this.
Yeah. Yeah.
You may not trick it out like the young kids do and get wheels and tires and wraps and things like that. But your license plate, the ability for you to personalize it, is your own little flex.
Yeah.
This is my flex.
Yeah.
This is who I am.
Right.
This is what I'm about.
Right. And then what about for companies? I know there's a commercial fleet aspect.
What does an actual fleet owner need? What information do you need? So we went out and said, hey, we need really good geofencing. Because if I have good geofencing, then I'm able to know where my vehicles are, and I can actually more accurately bid jobs because I know how long they're actually at the site. So if you can do that and give me a timestamp, that's huge.
Yeah.
I need to know how fast my drivers are driving the vehicles, because that affects my insurance.
Right.
So you can do that. I need to be able to update my registration of my vehicles without touching them. You can do that.
Right.
So I went
Especially if cars going across state lines and spending
100%.
time.
It's all the benefits of the ability to operate your fleet in the most seamless way possible with a dashboard that's friendly and a team that's willing to sit down and work with you if you need something different.
There's not a lot of folks like you that look like you who are doing this, who are starting tech companies. Is it your sense that it is different for, an African American in this industry because there's so few versus what the perception might be for others?
Yeah, I think it is. And it's funny because John Thompson and I were having this conversation early on. He was like, you think it's because of how you look that these opportunities aren't there? And I was like, there's some of that. And the reason why is you do business and you make people feel comfortable based on how comfortable you are with them.
Yeah.
If they look like you, automatically there is a connection point.
Right.
If they don't, not saying that people make those conscious decisions, but I think it's unconscious.
Yeah.
The first time I saw an African American on the other side of the desk, it automatically made me feel comfortable because I wasn't feeling like I needed to prove myself in order to be at the table.
Right. They don't automatically stiff arm you because you're black, just like you don't automatically get it if they're black.
Correct.
You still got to make the case. As you know, our story and how we met, I had no idea who you were, what you looked like. I just got a call from a lobbyist. I was in the governor's office and somebody asked me, you got to meet with this guy. I took the meeting. You walk in. And I'll go, oh, okay, all right. Let's see what this guy has to say. You're the founder of this company? Like, okay. I'll admit, even, I was like, why was surprised? Why should I be surprised? But I was surprised. Okay. But putting that aside, you make those connections with folks. You had a mentor who gave you advice early on in your life. Some of the people who were maybe early investors who were here, that when you're going to other places and you're talking to the people, they're looking to see who else is supporting you, and they go, okay, this must be a real thing.
It's a validation.
Yeah.
It's a validation.
Yeah.
When I think about that in our conversation and the fact that we had that instant connection, you're a loyal customer, but you're also a dear friend. It just makes, everything so much better because there is a pain, quite honestly, that you go through when you talk to 100 different VCs and doors get, close in your face.
Right.
Oh, we'll be cheering from you from the sidelines. If I heard that one more time, I would choke a chicken stack. It's like, you're like, can't have this conversation. What are you talking about cheering me from the sidelines?
Yeah.
Just get out of my way, so I can get going.
Right.
But the thing about that is that when somebody first gives you a term sheet, it's finally somebody believing in the dream that you had.
Uh-huh.
That dream that went from an idea to a deck, to a pre-prototype, to a prototype, to an actual working production model plate on a vehicle. And then all of a sudden you're seeing people, but you see people on the road that you know, and then all of a sudden you're seeing them in the wild, and people that you don't know are driving them, and it's everywhere.
Right.
It makes you feel like you've accomplished something in life. The thing is that when I started raising money, I raised about $5.5 million from friends and family. And when I took the first dollar, I knew that I would be in this for the long haul. I made a commitment, and I was going to honor that commitment. And honestly, it's been to the detriment of a lot of things. Like, I mean, time at home with the family, I'm not there as much as I would like to be. I'm gone a lot because I made, this commitment. So I'm really focused on the success of this company because I believe that it's more than just, it's not a license plate. What was great about the iPhone wasn't the actual hardware. It was the apps.
Right.
So things that you never even imagined in a million years that you could get from this, you were able to utilize this as a platform.
That's right.
And this is how I see the plate.
Yeah. For those people who haven't seen one yet, or they're in a state that there isn't as much penetration, like where are you now? Where are you looking to go?
Thanks for the question.
Yeah.
So a couple things. We're currently selling in California, Arizona, Michigan, and Texas for commercial fleets.
Okay.
We passed legislation in Colorado, Illinois, and Georgia, and we'll be integrating in those states before the end of the year. And then we have legislation that will be going into New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, and then looking at Florida for full authorization. Florida right now is for governmental vehicles, but we're looking for full authorization. And then Nevada, which is an interesting state. They're every other year, so you've got to get them on the
Interesting.
right. So by the end of 2025, we'll be in half of the driving population in the U.S.
Wow.
And then the plan is within the next 3 years after that, have the entire U.S.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. But now, even if Nevada doesn't have it yet, when I drive occasionally I might drive from the LA area to Las Vegas.
Yes.
My plate is still recognized there, right?
Your plate,
anywhere,
if it's valid in one state, it's valid in all states. Yes.
Okay, yeah.
It's exciting, man. And when you see the technology, the amount of work that went into developing it, because on the outside of a car, it's not part of the infotainment center. It's on the outside of the vehicle.
Right.
So negative 40 degrees Celsius to 185 degrees Fahrenheit. We've tested it in Dubai. We've tested it in the middle of the desert in Arizona, Death Valley, you name it. Erie, Pennsylvania. We've had it in Canada. We've had it all over, and it just works. We did regression tests for 15 years. It comes out looking the same. So it's like we took the time to build the technology that was right, and we spent the time. So 15 years in the game, man, we're just scratching the surface.
But what happens if the battery dies? Does your plate go blank?
It does not.
Okay.
It's an e-ink display, so it stays there. It only takes power for it to change.
Got it.
Absolutely. So when the image is there, it's there.
It's there. Well, that's fun. That's exciting, man. I'm lucky enough to say I get to be part of seeing it happen because I have them. So just as much as you're invested in the company, I'm invested in keeping my wife happy because she loves the plate. She loves to be able to change the banner message and do all this stuff. And California needs to copy Nevada and allow me to put my Raider emblem on my California plate. I'll take the regular number, but I need to have that. So
we got to work on that.
All right, we got to work on that.
We're going to work on that.
All right. Thanks, Neville. Good to see you, man. Thanks for coming in.
Absolutely, man.
We enjoyed it.
This.
Yeah, man.
Love this.
All right.
13th and Park is thrilled to welcome a second home to our family, the state of California, with the opening of our new studio in Hollywood, where we'll continue to share the biggest stories of the day and those behind them. Subscribe today for free to 13th and Park's YouTube channel so you never miss another episode.